Hi, everybody. I'm Steph Beckett here from rAVe Pubs. And as you all know, I really enjoy interviewing our speakers and presenters during a launch event or before to just give a little bit of what's going to happen. And we have another launch event coming up on next Thursday, October 8th. It is the SYNNEX COLLABSolv Hybrid Connections Day. And Dr. Tracy Brower is going to be our keynote speaker. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So first of all, you have a really cool background. You're a PhD sociologist. You've written a book called Bring Work to Life by Bringing Life to Work. You work with Steelcase's applied research and consulting group. So tell me a little bit about what made you so interested in workers in the workplace, because that's what you're talking to us about on next Thursday. You're talking about surviving and thriving during the pandemic and how to stay engaged and engaging. So a little bit about how you got interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is one of the most important things there is to think about because we spend so much time at work. We spend such a large proportion of our time working, and we need to find a way to kind of negotiate and navigate and integrate our work and life together. So that's been a really big part of the work that I enjoy doing. And I think things have changed so much, which I know we'll talk about in a minute. But if work is such a big part of our lives, then for us to understand the dynamics more, for us to understand the challenges more, for us to understand how we really generate resilience and engagement through that are really critical. And I always say, as a contributor to Forbes.com and Fast Company and other publications as well, I always say that writing is my weekend therapy and my weekend catharsis to kind of think through all of these amazing issues related to workers in the workplace.
100%. And we've talked a little bit about this, but studying workers in the workplace has definitely changed during COVID because there's no clear line between the workplace and your house anymore. I find that I've been working a lot more than I thought because I think at first you would think, oh yeah, working from home, that's like relaxing, that's great, but it's really been the opposite. So tell me a little bit about how studying this relationship has changed in the past 6 months.
Yeah, it's changed so much, right? Like one of the things that's really challenging is that there's so much less distinction between work and life. Like we have more time that feels like weekend time, but we need our refreshing time more than ever. And there's less difference between feeling those. We are recording this on a Friday, and we just said before the call, oh my gosh, I'm really glad it's Friday. I need the weekends more than ever, but they feel less like weekends than they did before. And so there are wonderful things about working from home, right? You can show up in your sweatpants, you can avoid your commute, you've got your, wonderful little dog at your feet maybe.
Yeah.
But it can also be really, really exhausting in terms of the intensity of it. And so that has shifted the way we think about our work, the kind of work that we're potentially doing, our work process, whom we're working with, clearly where we're working is shifted. So all of those things are different. And the other thing I would say that's super interesting is if you look at the work-life literature and research over time, it's always been about how to keep work at work, how to keep work separate, how to have a boundary, how to, really exploit your personal life in a really positive, constructive way. And now we're hearing people say, I'm loving this personal life thing, but I could also use a little distance. It'd be nice to get out of the house a little bit more. So this boundary is also a really appropriate thing. So in our discussion, we'll talk about how do you stay engaged when everything is different, both at work and at home, and when those lines are blurred more than ever.
Yeah, so without giving your entire keynote away, because I definitely want people to come, I think it's going to be great. Can you give maybe me just a couple of tips on how to stay engaged right now? Because it's so hard. My desk is right next to my bed. Like sometimes I really have to like keep myself from just getting into bed in the middle of the day. So what are just a few tips to really just stay on top of it, even when you're working from home and your office is in your room?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say one is to adopt a really clear routine and pattern and kind of rituals for the day. Those are more powerful than you would ever expect. So we'll talk a little bit more about those and how to do that. I think another is to really think about connections and being super intentional about connections. We'll talk more about this, but there is magic and power in the way that we connect with each other, with other people, and the way that we are really creative about doing that right now. And I think the third thing is to really think about kind of a new perspective on giving and altruism. There's some really wonderful studies on the extent to which we're contributing and the way that that keeps us engaged. A lot of times that contribution out really helps us in terms of what we're gaining for ourselves. So we'll talk about lots more than that, but those are just a few previews for you.
Awesome. Yeah. So once more, Tracy will be with us on Thursday. Her keynote is going to be called Surviving and Thriving During the Pandemic, How to Stay Engaged and Engaging. She will have so many more tips, so make sure to join us. I will include a link at the end of this video for how to register for that day. Tracy, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited to see you next week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. We're looking forward to it as well.